Good day everyone. So I am Sharifa de Tomas and I'm going to discuss to you the next method in teaching English. Okay, so we are now done discussing about the other methods of teaching English that discussed by my classmates, and now we're going to proceed to the other methods in teaching English, which is the community language learning and the silent way. Okay, so the first that we're going to discuss today is the community language learning, or also known as CLL. Okay, so what is community language learning? So it is a language teaching approach focused on group interest learning. So it is based on the counseling approach in which the teacher acts as a counselor and a paraphraser. So while the learners is seen as a client and collaborator. Okay, so for examples, translation. So the learners form a small circle. So a learner whispers a message or meaning he or she wants to express. So the teacher translates it into the target language and the learners repeats the teacher's translation. Okay, so who developed community language learning? Okay, so community language learning is the name of a method developed in the 1970s by Charles A. Curran and his associates at Loyola University in Chicago. Curran had a background as a counseling specialist and professor of psychology. So in Quran's CLL 1976, there are four major aspects of learning process, namely security, insertion, reflection, and the discrimination. So the language teacher starts out by giving the students a feeling of security and a sense of community. Then he encouraged the students to make an investment in his own learning by asserting himself through participation in the group experience. In this way, the student's attention is infallibly guaranteed. So the third and possibly the most important step is reflection, which occurs during moment of silence. The student is asked to reflect on his own learning experiences, including his interaction with the group. Retention of material learned is usually reinforced during the period of reflection. Finally, there is a discrimination stage during which the students scrutinize linguistic material used in group conversation in order to infer linguistic relationship, function, classes, and etc. Okay, so in conclusion, this means that in the CLL approach, it is the students who choose the type of activity to carry it out in the language classroom. So the teacher is equivalent role of counselor, has a supportive function, encouraging group work and communication between the learners. Okay, so let's proceed to the next method. So the silent way. So what is the silent way? So it is a teaching method developed by renowned linguists Dr. Caleb Catigno in the 1970s that emphasizes students' involvement and discovery. So it is based on the belief that learning is an active process and that students are more likely to learn if they are involved in the process. So the silent way also incorporates the use of props, pictures, and gestures to help students understand new concepts. Okay, so the silent way puts a great emphasis on correct pronunciation from the very beginning. So in this method, the teacher is more of facilitator than a lecturer, and he or she uses various techniques to help students internalize the new language. Okay, so one such technique is called echoing, where the teacher repeats what the student has just said, but with that correct pronunciation. This allows the students to hear how the words should be pronounced and to self-correct if necessary. So another common techniques used in the silent way is called teacher talk. So this is when the teacher asks questions or gives brief explanation in English, but does not provide any translation into the target language. So this forces students to listen carefully and try to figure out what is being said. Okay, so the teacher's role in this method is to provide a support environment where the students can take risk and experiment with language. So this means that the teacher speaks very little, instead using visual aid to help convey meaning. So the students are encouraged to work together to figure out new concepts, and they are given ample time to proceed information before moving on. Okay, so in conclusion about this method, that the silent way is a language teaching method developed by Caleb Catigno that emphasizes students' involvement and discovery learning. So the teacher uses minimal verbal explanations and instead relies on visual aid to help students understand new concepts. So this allows students to learn at their own pace and figure out how the language works for themselves. So silent way classes are typically very small, so that each student can get individual attention from the teacher.